Welcome to the Change Energizer Hot Seat Podcast. This is a place where leaders are dropped into the hot seat to open up about high-stake wins and reveal the trust X factor behind their triumphs. I'm your host, Scott Carley, the Trust Energizer. I believe the confidence people have in the way you show up, your character, and your expertise is the real game changer. When trust is high, people and teams don't just perform, they pull off legendary wins. Today, our guest is Kyle Jones, an agency owner at Goosehead Insurance. You call Kyle when you want an expert to guide your choices in insurance coverage that protects your family. So welcome to the show.
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me.
Hey, we're so glad to have you here. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule, and you and I connect around Austin all the time, and so I'm really glad to have you on the show today.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so come tell our audience what you do and who you serve.
Yeah, so I am an insurance agent. I work as a broker. Essentially what we do is we take our clients and we have conversations with them, figure out what their needs are, what they are, what needs protection, whether it's, obviously home and auto is the core of what we do, but we protect boats and motorcycles. We provide umbrella protection, flood insurance, investment properties. And what we do is we kind of guide them through the process. As a broker, what we do is we provide the choice. We go and shop the market and find the best option, as opposed to just offering one solution and hoping that that's the one size fits all solution, which it really never is. So that's what we do. We tailor our approach to each individual to make sure that they've got the right protection and take it from there.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, Kyle, here's what we both know. Every one of your clients, prospects, and decision makers are silently asking you a series of trust-based questions before they ever sign the deal. They may not say it out loud, but they're scanning for signals, looking for proof that you're someone they can rely on, collaborate with, and work alongside.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I created the Trust Credit Score. It's a framework built around the 5 key signals of trust: your vibe, your agenda and motives, do you walk your talk, can you actually deliver, and do you have receipts?
Yeah.
So today, I'm putting you in the hot seat to answer some of the questions your clients are already asking, whether they realize it or not, about your professional service. So let's just dive in and just jump into some of these questions that I know your clients already have in their heads. So I guess the first one is, how do you choose what companies and products to show me? I mean, are you doing the homework to match me and the right choices, or are you just giving me easy options? What are you doing?
No, I think that's a good question because, easy options is kind of what, a lot of agents do. And it's a kind of a bad, part of our industry is a lot of agents can be lazy and complacent and they are comfortable with a certain product or a company, or they just don't want to do the homework. What we have is the technology that is top notch and second to none that allows us to do the thorough work in a much more efficient manner to find the right option. Now, obviously, some of the things that we do up front is, I kind of approach every individual situation as, if I was in their shoes and I was buying the product, I'm going to present what I would want to purchase myself, or I would sell to my own mother, or, my family. But, I have to ask questions to help me understand the individual client. What are their needs? What are their desires? Is, price most important? Obviously, everybody wants a low price. Is it maximum protection? They just want to know that whatever happens, they're covered. Is it, kind of a balance, which is the approach I like to take. And that's usually how I, approach it is like, hey, we're going to find a scenario that fits what you need, but I'm not going to come back to them with the cheapest possible price, because at the end of the day, I can get you a cheap policy, but nobody wants that, because you purchase it in the event that something happens, you want coverage. And that cheap policy that you got a lot of times will not cover what happens. So,
yeah, I mean, I appreciate all of that. Your skill set and your expertise as someone who knows what's out there in the market. And by listening to me, you've come up with, okay, this is what Scott needs specifically. That's what I'm looking for. That's what your clients are looking for. Somebody with an expertise and an understanding.
Yeah, and
And
that's how we have to approach it. It's everybody wants something different from it. Everybody needs something different. Sometimes, you have a risk profile that, dictates this is the company that fits your profile, and that's why we're going this route.
yeah, and as we age or our family grows or shrinks, then our insurance wants and needs change. So that kind of brings me to the next question.
Yeah.
In what ways are you working for me, not the insurance company? I mean, are
Yeah.
you truly unbiased in your recommendations or are subtly leaning towards certain characters because there's a bigger kickback from them?
Yeah, well, and there's a couple layers to that. One, the analogy that I like to give that kind of I think simplifies the scenario that I operate in is I before I became an independent broker, which was about 6 or 7 years ago, I operated in what we call the captive insurance space for about 10 plus years, where I represented one company. That one company was sometimes the good solution for a client, sometimes it wasn't. And so when a client came to me as a captive agent, you kind of have to think of it as the captive agent is sitting on the same side of the table, in a negotiation table, as the insurance company. Whereas now, as a broker, me and my client are sitting on the same side, and then on the other side of the table, there's a list of insurance companies that are trying to earn their business, and I get to help negotiate, find the best product, the best solution that fits what they need. And so that allows me to kind of, again, be aligned with my clients as opposed to aligned with the insurance company. And the other layer to that, when you talk about incentives and bonuses, different companies do offer different levels of commission sometimes. And you could think, oh, well, that would be the one I'd go to. But that's not the way I approach things. And another thing is some other independent agents get bonuses from insurance companies if they sell certain amounts of their products. With our model, we've kind of removed that from us agents. We don't get those bonuses. So I have no incentive to go to one company over another from that perspective. I just want to make sure you've got the best possible solution. And like, I'll give you an example. Yesterday morning, I was on the phone with a client who has another independent broker and is having trouble kind of dealing with that agent and making changes that fit with what's going on with their house. What we're doing is we're moving the policies over to my agency, and I'm not going to get paid any commission, and I'm actually going to help her lower her cost, which is going to, result in a commission pullback for me. So I'm going to actually lose money to put the client in a better spot. And so that's the way I try to approach everything. I want to do what's right for my clients, not what's right for me. So that's the
Yeah,
approach.
I love that. And what I'm hearing from that as a homeowner and somebody who's been buying insurance for a long time is you want me as a client for life,
Yes.
not for the next 12 months. You
Yeah.
want me to keep coming back. And so you're going to find a policy that really suits what I'm specifically looking for. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, it does me no good to sell one policy to you and then never hear from you or see from you again. It doesn't grow my business. It doesn't help me. It doesn't fulfill what I'm trying to do with this business and helping my clients. So it's a long-term approach. Has to be looked at that way. One-time sales is not going to do the trick for us.
Okay, that's good. I love to hear all of that. So I've got another thought in mind, and again, I think this is something clients are asking. I know I ask it. So
Yeah.
how do I know you'll be here for me after the policy is signed
Yeah.
and the monthly draft is taken care of and business is done? How
Yeah.
do I know that you'll still be there for me if something comes up?
Yeah. I mean, I get that question sometimes. It's like, they maybe had an agent that they liked or trust and that agent left the business or they, never talked with that agent again. I'm going to be your agent for as long as you'll allow me to be, from that from that perspective. I'm always a phone call, an email or text away. Obviously, I have a fully licensed and trained service team backing me up because I am one individual and I have thousands of policies and clients. And so, regular policy changes, you need to change out a vehicle, you need to update your payment or just pay your renewal, whatever it is. I've got an army behind me to help, because I can't answer every single phone call. But, when you have a true question or, update, whether it's, hey, this rate went up, we need to reshop. Those are the times where you're always going to be able to talk to me. You're always going to be able to give my advice. I have clients who love email and don't like phone calls. I have clients who love text and don't like phone calls. I have clients who only want to talk on the phone. And all whatever approach fits the needs of my clients, that's the approach I take.
Oh, that's good. I like that. I'm somebody who would rather be text, and then we could arrange a phone call if necessary. So
Yeah.
much easier for me to respond to a text than it is to a phone call.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
But remind our audience, how many years have you been in business? Tell me about that. You were in
I've,
business for 10 years.
so
What
I've been
are you
in,
now? Tell me about that.
I've been in insurance. I've been an agent for nearly 20 years.
All right, 20 years. Hello, audience. Listen, 20 years. This guy's not a startup. He's not brand new. He's not a novice. 20 years. That's 2 decades last I checked. That's
Yes.
credibility right there.
Yeah.
That's a track record. I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, insurance is always evolving. There's a lot of nuance. There's always changes being made. And so, I never have a dull day where I'm not learning something new and updating my knowledge base, which only kind of helps my clients because, again, the insurance market is evolving at all times. And especially now here in Texas, when it comes to homeowners insurance, things have been changing so rapidly over the last 3 years from obviously increased costs, changes in deductibles, how claims are paid, nuance that you can't really keep up with as an everyday consumer, that you really need someone who's kind of day in and day out doing the same thing.
Yeah, and has seen some history of how things go, and so they can anticipate
Yeah.
some other stuff. Now,
Yeah.
here's a big question. This is a big one, and this is one everyone is asking, and we
Yeah.
usually ask it at the first of the year or whenever our renewal comes up. How do
Yeah.
you handle it when a carrier raises my premium? I mean,
Yeah.
will you advocate for me, shop around a little bit, bring me some options, or just explain and say, hey, it is what it is? What do you do?
Yeah, no, and that's, we talk about benefits of working with a broker like me versus benefits of working with, a captive agent. And when I was a captive agent for a very large national company that everybody knows, and we had clients who loved the company, loved us as people, as agents, they trusted us, they love, all those things. But the rate goes up, and you're a captive agent, you have one option. You kind of have to have the same conversation over and over. Hey, we had a statewide rate increase. The cost of claims have gone up. They had to raise rates for everybody. It's not you. It's just everybody has to pay more. Well, what can we do to, offset this increase? That was always the response, which naturally it's like, how can I get it back to where I was? And the only options we generally would have was we could increase your deductibles, which lowers costs, or we can remove some optional coverages that you don't have to have, but they're providing you extra coverage, which, is not a, good conversation to have. It's not a good approach to have, but that was the only option we would really have. Whereas now you come to me, you say, hey, carrier XYZ raised my rates. What happened? And, maybe the conversation starts with, hey, they had statewide rate increases. Cost of claims have gone up. They had to raise rates for everybody, not just you. But then instead of saying, well, let's increase your deductible or let's remove this coverage that I recommended for you when we started, let's see what the rest of the market has to say and see if there's anybody else who really wants to earn your business, offering the same levels of coverage, the same deductibles for a lower cost to get your premium back down. So now, does every single time are we able to find an option? No, because sometimes we started with them because they were 20% better than the market, but now they raised their rates 10%. They're still 10% better than the rest of the market. So it's
That's a good point.
it's
That's a very good point. And sometimes we need to be reminded of that.
Yeah. And so, and it's also, the delicate, balance of you don't want to change too often, but you don't want to stay too long. Where if you change every single year or even on auto insurance every single month, you might be able to save $50. But in the long run, the longer you stay with one company, you build a long-term credibility with that company. And so then when other companies review your portfolio, they say, okay, they were with that company for 3 years. They're probably not going to leave us right after we sign them up. So in the same way that we're evaluating the insurance companies, they're actually evaluating their clients and saying, we want somebody who's going to stick with us because generally speaking, insurance companies don't profit off you the first year. They profit off the second, third, fourth years. They want you to stay with them. And so they want a client who's going to come to them, who's going to be loyal. So you try to balance that. You want to stay for a little bit, earn some credibility, some loyalty, some insurance score improvements. And then if they start raising your rates and somebody else wants you more, we'll go there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. I love that. Yeah, that was a right answer. So when you and I sit down and have a discussion and your clients, what do you look for when evaluating my needs and risk? What kind of questions do you ask? And how proactive are you about, digging in a little bit to see if there is something that will, maybe a habit, or we haven't had any wrecks in so many years.
Yeah.
But what do you do to evaluate my needs and my risk?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in that first conversation, I'm asking questions that hopefully give me some indication of what your pain points are. What is important to you as a consumer from purchasing insurance? But also, I'm looking at the market. What's going on with the market? Are there certain areas that are higher risk? Is there a risk of a certain type of event, whether it's hail or wind or wildfire or flood? In your area, because here in Austin, where we are, Shoal Creek runs right through the middle of town. And if you buy near that, it's got a history of flooding. You may not be in a high risk flood zone, and your mortgage company may not say you have to buy it. But I'm going to say, hey, you're across the street from that Shoal Creek. You should consider flood insurance, even though you're not, required to buy it. Other scenarios that I look at for high risk from liability perspective, which is obviously the most overlooked, I think, aspect of purchasing insurance. Everyone looks at, your deductibles and how much coverage you have for your dwelling, your house. But when you talk about liability protection on both home and auto, there's a couple of risk profiles. If you have a pool in your backyard, it doesn't really change the coverage on the home, but it does increase your liability exposure. So you're going to probably, if you're coming to me, I'm going to say you need an umbrella policy to cover that extra liability. If you have investment properties, maybe you've got extra liability exposure there. If you have young drivers, teenagers, they're the most accident prone in the industry. The insurance companies charge them a high rate because there's a lot of data that backs up the exposure. And so if you have a teenage driver, you need that umbrella policy to cover your liability, because there's a high probability that they're going to get an accident, and accidents can happen anytime, and severity can, be pretty bad. So you want that extra layer of protection. So things like that are the ways that I approach every situation to make sure, we're looking at the whole scenario and we're not missing anything, so that's how we have to approach it.
I know that I don't even know what questions to ask sometimes. And a little bit later down the road, there's some things that I figure out I should have asked about that.
Yeah.
And like we just built a house up in Liberty Hill, and we live a mile from the North Fork of the San Gabriel River.
Yeah.
Which back in July is the one that flooded.
Yeah.
And I watched this thing go from, 50 feet across to 50 yards across.
Yeah.
And we were not affected by it at all because we're so much higher.
Yeah.
But then it begs the question, oh my word, am I in a floodplain?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Are you the person who helps me to get the answer to that?
Well, so that's the funny, everybody is technically in a flood zone. Like that's just the nature of how they map it out. It's just, what risk is it? Is it a 1 in 1,000 years, 1 in 5 years,
Okay.
1 in 100 years? And so, generally speaking, if you're in a high risk flood zone, a higher risk is generally that 1 in every 100 years. Sometimes that 1 in 500 is risky enough for some people, right? But 1 in 100 years, there's a decent chance that in your lifetime it might flood there. Most of the time, you're going to be required to buy it. You're going to know whoever's selling you the house, or if you're financing the home with a mortgage, they're going to tell you you have to buy it. But we'll analyze that. And I've had clients who are not in that high risk zone, but they're close enough to a body of water that can rise, and you want to make sure you have that protection.
Yeah, good. Well, now I know who to ask. I can talk to you and find out.
In my old days at the captive industry, when we ran quotes, it didn't tell us. Our technology, we run it. I know exactly what the ballpark within $100 a year, what flood insurance will cost you. So I don't even.
That's awesome.
I don't have to do a lot of extra work to be able to bring that to the table and say, hey, if you were to buy flood insurance, you are close to water, or you're not close to water, whatever the situation is, here's about how much it would cost you extra per year to have that policy. So it's an easy kind of, process driven thing that we do to make sure that you understand it. It's not typically covered on homeowners insurance, but we have this option, and here's how much it would cost.
Yeah. If I live in central Oklahoma and I'm in Tornado Alley, I imagine that there's some risk involved in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we want to make sure you understand what the biggest risk is, whether it's, you're on the hill country and you've got the wildfire exposure, whether you're up in North Texas, you've got the big hail exposure, you're down in Houston or coastal, you've got the hurricane exposure. So it doesn't really matter where you are in Texas, you've got some sort of weather exposure that's going to impact your coverage risk profile, so to speak.
Okay. Now all insurance all leads to one thing, and that is claims.
Yeah.
So can you describe your claims support process? So
Yeah.
I have an accident or something happens with my home and I need to talk to somebody. Will you walk me through some of those stressful times? Or are you
Yeah.
just going to say, nah, call 1-800, they'll do it all. I don't do anything. Tell me what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's kind of a balanced approach here where, I like to have my clients notify me, hey, this is what happened, what should I do? Because, there are scenarios where you think it's a claim, but we talk through it and we realize, hey, your deductible is this is how much damage is there. It's probably not worth filing a claim because every time you file a claim, it impacts your record. You have a claim on your record. And so the first thing you want to do is this a claim you could file? Because if we don't have that conversation, you file the claim and it ends up not being something that should have been filed, there's still a claim on your record, regardless of them paying out a single dollar. You can open it and close it right away. It shows up as a claim. So we want to have that first. Second part is if we talk through it and we say, yes, this is a claim. Here's how it will be covered. Here's the deductible that would apply. Here's what you should expect, blah, blah, blah. Kind of you go through the process of, expectations. It helps them understand what they should be expecting and not have expectations that either are unrealistic, or just not align with how it usually plays out. And then, the next step is to get to the claims department of that insurance company that we have placed you with. And so that is where you would have to go to an 800 number to file the claim. And then once that claim starts, then it's kind of a balanced approach. They have claims adjusters. They're licensed. That's what they do. That's not our job, but we're not licensed to adjust claims. So we can't, make the decisions and write the checks, but we can be there as like, hey, they said this. Does this sound right? Yes, this is
Okay, that's really good information to know because I'm sure there are some of us, me,
Hmm.
who didn't really realize, I guess I did, but I really didn't think about it, that you're not the one that can make all those adjustments. Only the mothership can make all of those adjustments about whatever we file on a claim. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, they have licensed claims adjusters. That's what they do. That's all they do. We're licensed sales agents, if you will. We are licensed and professionals in helping you find the right coverage, and we're always there as a resource. But when it comes time to file a claim, they're the ones that go out and inspect the damage. They're the ones that write the estimates. If you have a contractor, they're the ones that approve the contractor's invoice and all that, and they're the ones that handle that. And Goosehead is the largest broker in Texas. We partner with A-rated companies that are A, financially secure, so we know they can pay the claims, and B, they have good customer service ratings when it comes to claims. We don't partner with the companies that have bad reputations. We
Yeah.
partner with companies who handle their claims well. And that gives us that layer of, comfort knowing that, hey, we've placed you with this company. You know, if something goes wrong, communication is not there from that adjuster, or you don't think they're handling it the right way, let us know. We can get involved. We can talk to that claims department. We can talk to the adjuster. But ultimately, we partner with good companies, and we don't hear much about claims because they're doing their job. We're doing our job. We've put them in the right policy, the right coverage. They file the claim. The claims adjuster handles it, and everything goes from there. So it's a
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about that in just a few minutes when I get down about trusting your teams.
yeah,
But that all of that is very good to know. And there's a couple other questions that I want to ask you
sure,
about insurance, and especially I'm 66, and we're in that life is transitioning to a different place.
yeah,
So, in what ways do you keep our policies current as life changes? We become, we're just a young couple that gets married, and then oh wow, all of a sudden we have kids show up, and then
yeah,
we're empty nesters, and
yeah.
then there might be health issues or challenges that
Yeah.
change things. How do you keep me current with that stuff? Or, is that just left to collect dust somewhere and then you wait until an accident happens and say, oh man, we should have updated this a year
Yeah.
ago?
Yeah, no, I mean, a couple that one of the things I think you're indicating or we're looking at or talking about is probably more like a life insurance product that, protects your family if something happens to you.
Yeah.
I'm licensed to sell life insurance and we have products, but I'm not an expert. I don't do that day in, day out. So I generally have people who I trust who I can say, hey, talk to this person. They can guide you that down that path. Because protecting you and your family from a life event is definitely important. From the insurance side of things, kind of like what we talked about earlier, where you know I don't think it's prudent to change every single year. It can actually be detrimental. Do I have clients who change I sign them up now and next year they change? Absolutely. Sometimes something changes, whether it's the insurance company we replaced them with is no longer competitive, or something in their life changed and they need a different product that is available with a different company. One of those things that I think is sometimes overlooked, and it falls through the cracks, that is unfortunate. If somebody buys a house, they live in it, and then they move out of that house and rent it out. It now needs a different product. We need to make sure we update that product to the proper policy to protect that investment property now, as opposed to your primary, homeowners occupied. Things like that. Obviously, when you change out vehicles, sometimes, the company we have you with doesn't like that car. And so the rates aren't competitive, or they say, we're not going to insure this. So we have to find a new policy. So there's just different ways that we have to kind of stay on top of that. Sometimes it's, whether you bought a new car, bought a new house, things like that we always can update. We have triggers that notify us when certain policies go up by a percentage that we think is out of the norm. And so when those come up on our dashboard, we're going to reach out to you and say, hey, we got a notification, your policy's going up. We're going to shop the market to make sure you're still in a good spot. And so
that brings up another question that's kind of going on around in this. We're in a brand new neighborhood. So if, I get my house, and so I get my insurance policy, and, it's based on, what the house looked like whenever we closed. But let's say that I decide I want to put a deck in, and then I'm going to also put a pergola in, and I'm not going to get a pool, but I got a hot tub. Do I need to call my insurance agent? And if I were to call you, what would you say when I told you I've got a deck and a pergola and a hot tub? Do we need to do anything about those? What would you tell me?
Yeah, so for all your homeowner's policy has built-in layers of coverage for, things like that automatically. And so if it's under a certain threshold, then generally you don't have to make any changes. Now, if you live on some land, you've got your primary home we're insuring, and then you build like a guest house that is significant value, that's when you would want to make sure, hey, that needs to be protected. But a deck, other structures, generally as part of your policy, it's covering up to a certain amount. If it falls under the limit, then there's no change to be made. I get the question all the time, like I mentioned earlier, about the pool. I'll have somebody who buys a house, and then, a year later they install a pool, and they'll call and say, hey, we just put in a pool, we need to update the policy. Well, in general, like the pool itself is already part of the policy. We can update the reconstruction costs to account for it, but most of the claims that occur with pools are that liability that I talked about. And so what we need to do at that point is update your policy. If we don't have an umbrella, now's the time to buy one. So those are the conversations that we're always having. But if it's something small and something, not super expensive, then generally your policy has certain layers of protection to cover that already. When it gets above a certain amount, then we actually need to update the policy.
Okay, good. Now I feel better about it already.
Yeah.
So earlier you mentioned a little bit about your team.
Yeah.
And when I say your team, as a broker, an insurance advisor, you may have some people in your office also, but tell me a little bit about, what does an elite high trust insurance team look like? Like, a claims concierge or advocacy partner, policy review specialist, carrier relationship manager, estate or financial advisor, a risk consultant. Tell me about those people. Like you said earlier, we do the sales, but then they take care of the claims. Tell me what else, what other parts of it?
So like part of our team, obviously here locally in my office is other sales agents, other, people that do what I do, just within our team here. But one of the benefits that, I partnered with Goosehead as a franchise owner is they have a lot of support that I would have to hire in-house that they've got tons of team members, quality controls. Every policy we submit, they review it. Does it match up with what you said is on the policy? You said this coverage is on there. We're looking. If it's not on there, make sure either they know it's not on there or you add that coverage. You put this is how so they're always reviewing every policy we submit. Support,
That's great.
If we have questions about a certain carrier, a certain coverage, we have people we can call that can make sure to answer the questions. We have obviously relationships with our carriers. They have, sales reps that can help guide through the process. Like, hey, I've got this risk. Is this something that you will take? Is it in your appetite? And they say, yes, absolutely. Here's the endorsement that covers that. So we're putting the right coverage in place. Or they say, no, that's not in our appetite. We don't want that. So we know, hey, cross them off. They're not going to take your product. When it comes to claims, if something's going wrong, that claims adjuster won't return your phone call, won't return your email. That's probably the most common complaint we get from claims.
Ghosting.
The claims adjuster just will not return my phone call. I need to ask him a question. I sent him an email. I've left voicemails. We've got an escalation team. They'll get involved, and they'll contact the claims manager who's in charge of that adjuster. And they'll say, hey, why can't we get a phone call to our client? So there's just a bunch of different ways that we can get involved or have the support to get involved. Some of our companies have agent advocates and escalation teams. So instead of going to my service team, I go directly to the escalation service claims manager for that company and say, hey, this claim is not, being handled properly. They're not returning a phone call. We need this decided. Like they're waiting on this to close it out, whatever it is, and they get involved. So there's just a lot of different people that are at our disposal to make sure that, we're getting the people in place to make the decisions or make stuff happen to close out a claim, to, make sure the policy's covered correctly. We're putting the policy with the right company, all those things.
Oh, I love that. I love everything that you said. And the bottom line, as a broker, you're not just selling, you're curating trust with clients. And people don't just want to quote, they want to know, can I count on you to show up when my roof caves in?
Yeah.
Or my teen crashes a car, or my house gets hit with hail, or there's a winter apocalypse that comes to Austin for 2 days or 2 weeks. And
well,
I love that.
It's funny you say that because like I've got probably one of the things that I get a lot that I don't like the question or the approach is, hey, can you just quote me what I have? If I have somebody who's shopping their insurance and they come to me and they've got a home policy, they've got an auto policy, can you just quote what I have? I was like, well, I could, but that's not the approach I take because what you have may not be the right coverage. And I'm going to approach it with, hey, you've got this coverage. I recommend this. Here's why. This costs more. What I'm recommending costs more than what you're paying. I know you came to me to save money. A lot of people do that, but here's why you need this. It only costs $10 a month more than you're paying, but it's way better coverage. It fits with what you need. Say I get a referral from one of my referral partners. They're buying a house and they've got a quote from another company and it's a lower price than what I'm quoting them with a different company. And I know that company, they don't like pools or they don't like trees overhanging your house, or they don't like this type of construction, or they're going to go inspect that and they're going to cancel your insurance because I've dealt with them before. I want to make sure you understand that.
Hold on. Audience, hello. Are you listening? Are you listening to what he just said? I have dealt with these different companies and they all like and don't like different things. And so based on what Kyle knows about all these different companies, that's also how you can handpick and get stuff to your clients. I love that. That's really great.
I mean, ultimately, there are companies, every company out there has an appetite for a certain risk profile. Obviously, everybody wants clean claims and all that, certain things that everybody likes, but there are certain things that this company, that's their niche. That's what they cover. Whether it's tiny homes or mobile homes or, luxury home, whatever it is, we know which company fits that profile or has that appetite for that risk. And sometimes they may not be the cheapest policy, but trust me, they're the right company for your situation.
Yeah. Wow. This is just awesome. I love what you're saying. I can't say that every insurance agent that I visit with has been this transparent and demonstrating as much expertise as you are. But I want to tell you, thank you on behalf of my audience. Thank you very much.
Well,
Kyle, as we wrap it up, is there anything else that you would like to add that we didn't cover so far?
Well, not really. You just said that, there's other agents you've talked to that aren't. I'd like to think that we're different. Goosehead is different, but me specifically, we're different because we're not order takers. We don't, you just say, here's the quote I need and here's what I want. If you want that, you can buy that through a 1-800 call center. You can go online and buy it yourself. What we do is we curate the policy to make sure that you've got the right coverage, fits your needs. You're not overpaying, but you're not undercovered. And that's the approach we take. And that's why you would come to someone like me versus doing it on your own.
Yeah. That is a insurance advisor. And I love that. So how can people get in touch with you? How do they find you? Do you have a phone number or an email or what? How do they get in touch with you?
All of the above. So we've got a website where it's got a link. You can start the quote process. Obviously, what that does is it sends your information over directly to me, not to a bunch of people to call you, which is what traditionally has happened in our industry, which I hate. You can start the process there. Obviously phone, we've got an office phone, we've got agents in our office, we've got my direct line. My direct line is going to be 512-851-1198. You can call or text that line. The office line is 512-572-6772. And then my email is my name, kyle.jones@goosehead.com. But yeah, the website that goes directly to me, if you wanted to start the quote process, is the goosehead.com/Kyle-Jones. So pretty easy there.
Oh, good. Okay, audience, hello. Now you know how to get in touch with him. Blow up his phone, blow up his email and his website, and get the value that he can bring to you. Thank you very much for being my guest. You call Kyle when you want an expert to guide your choices in insurance coverage that protects your family and is up to date. So, Kyle, let's keep the conversation going. I love what you're doing, and thank you very much for serving my audience. I hope you enjoyed the Change Energizer Hot Seat podcast today. And if you're listening and thinking, man, I would crush it in the hot seat, then reach out and book a call with me, and maybe you would be a candidate for the Change Energizer Hot Seat podcast. All you have to do is go to calltheenergizer.com and book a call with me, and we'll see if the hot seat is right for you. Or if you'd like to bring me into your company or into your conference and run a live hot seat, just like I did with Kyle today, and energize your people to elevate their trust culture, then you can talk to me about that too. So the way you get in touch with me is calltheenergizer.com and book a call with me, and we'll take it from there. So until next time, stay energized and trusted. This is the Trust Energizer.